धीमहि तन्नः षण्मुखः प्रचोदयात् भूतनादाय विद्महे भवपुत्राय धीमहि तन्नः शास्तात् प्रचोदयात् आदित्याय च सोमाय मङ्गलाय बुधाय च गुरुशुक्रशनिभ्यश्च राघवे केतवे नमो नमः आञ्जनेयाय विद्महे वायुपुत्राय धीमहि तन्नो हनुमत् प्रचोदयात् कात्यायनाय विद्महे कन्याकुमारी धीमहि तन्नो दुर्गे प्रचोदयात् त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव वन्दनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् सर्वमङ्गलमाङ्गल्ये शिवे सर्वार्थसाधिके शरण्ये त्र्यम्बके गौरी नारायणि नमोऽस्तुते ॐ नमो पुराणपतये नमो गणपतये नमः प्रमदपतये नमस्ते लम्बोदराय एकदन्ताय विघ्नविनाशिने विपसुताय श्रीवरदमुक्तये नमो नमः वक्रतुण्ड महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा विनायकाय नमस्कारे देवताभ्यो नमो नमः सर्व अपराधक्षमार्थं सर्वमङ्गलप्राप्त्यर्थं अलङ्कार पञ्चमुखदीपं दर्शयामि आचमनीयं समर्पयामि नित्यरक्षां धारयामि द्रष्टोमेन पञ्चदशेन मध्यनिकं वारेण सहरेण रक्षां धारयामि ॐ हर
Namaste. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, yes. Thank you. Dr. Biram Vanagar is going to present today, and the topic is the power of forgiveness. She doesn't need introduction to this group. Her last talk was very well received. And Vanagaru, over to you.
Thank you, Rajagaru. So nice to see so many of you returning. I'm so happy to be presenting this topic today, the power of forgiveness. We're going to talk about it in the spiritual sense from several different spiritual traditions. I'm going to be calling on both a Hindu tradition as well as a tradition from Hawaii. So I want you to start by thinking about some examples of when you have become irritated or had some frustration. And I want you to think about the last time that you were at the ocean. And have you ever been at the ocean when you saw the waves coming towards you and you tried to fight the wave that was coming in versus allowing yourself to move along with the wave and float along with the way that the water was moving? And I want you to think about the contrast in what it is to fight the wave versus how you allow yourself to move with that energy. I also want you to think about a time where I know many of us are very careful about not walking in puddles or stepping in mud. So imagine back to your childhood, or maybe even your children or your nieces or nephews, in which you were walking along and you stepped into a puddle of water and your shoes get completely soaking wet, or you step into a mud puddle and then you have to continue walking. And I want you to remember that feeling of what it was like to walk before your shoes were soaking wet to the moment when you had to continue walking with the squishy shoes, whether it was filled with water or filled with mud, that feeling that you were not moving freely or that you were not able to move as quickly as you wanted to. Or even think about in our own personal circumstances. I know that I get irritated very easily. My friends say that I have a short temper. I hear that it runs in the Rao family. I'm not sure. You all can tell me whether that's true or not, but I've heard that sometimes we can get a little short-tempered. And have you ever had a conversation with a loved one where out of the blue, you're talking about something and you get irritated in that moment about something very silly? And it's just at that moment that you suddenly go, well, you know what you did last week? Or what about what happened last month? Or sometimes even as far back as, well, you know, in 1973, this is what happened, and I've never been able to forget about it since. Well, these different instances, whether we're talking about waves in the ocean that we either move along with the water or we fight the wave that's coming, or if we think about the fight that we had with a loved one, or walking through the streets with squishy shoes filled with water or filled with mud, these are just trapped energies. In the Hawaiian system, we call that baggage, or we call it stuck energy. And forgiveness is one of the most powerful ways of clearing out our system so that we can remember that at the end of the day, we are filled with pure light, and that our systems work best when we are a clean and clear vessel. For us to receive the light from our supreme source, we must make sure that we do our own internal cleansing. One of the things I love about our tradition is that we have so many scriptures and so many stories where we learn the values and we learn the lessons that we are supposed to apply. But I don't know about you, sometimes I find it a little hard to practice just from reading something. And so what I've appreciated in the last few years as I've traveled to Hawaii is that I've begun to study in a system that not only talks to you about the lessons, but how you apply it and how you practice it. So we're going to take a few examples today and then walk our way through what it is to forgive. So let's talk about what forgiveness is. We throw that term around a lot. I must forgive, I must forget. And what is forgiveness? It's a process. It is a give and take. And as Swami Chinmayananda, as well as Mahatma Gandhi have said, forgiveness is an attribute of the strong. People who are able to forgive are actually much stronger than those who hold on to these negative emotions and allow them to carry in their systems, as well as to fester sometimes into health problems or emotional problems or a feeling of stuckness. In our Hindu Dharma, we say that one who does not forgive carries a baggage of memories of the wrong that was done or the negative emotions, and it not only affects the present, but it affects the future. And so when we talk about what we are doing actively every single day to deal with our karmas from the past, to be able to take some of those lessons that have come from past lives and make the course correction, or for some people, the restitution in this life, how is it that in our present circumstance, we don't create more negative emotions or more baggage for us in the present or as we move into the future? In our highest self-realized state, which we talk about all in most of our holy scriptures, in our highest self-realized state, forgiveness becomes the essence of one's personality. What that means is you are free from baggage, and no matter what stones are hurled at you, you remain in a calm, centered, and balanced state. That which goes through you does not remain stuck inside of you. Now that's really easily said. And for many of us, me included, it's very difficult to do. But let's talk about what it means to forgive. Many of us who come from cultures that have root languages, languages like Sanskrit, Latin, or the Hawaiian language, these languages carry a lot of energy or movement. In the Hawaiian system, we call it mana or prana. This energy is exchanged between people when they're having conversations. Take a look at our mantras, the way that our chanting is done in the temple, the energy that is carried not just from the person who's chanting, but for the person who's listening. There is an energy that comes from these very old languages, and it's a very active energy. So take, for example, the notion of saying, I'm sorry versus forgive me. So I know in many of our Indian languages, when we ask for somebody's understanding, we say Kshama, forgive me. It's a very active process. So, I know most of you have your microphones on mute, so feel free to talk to yourself. Say this out loud. I'm sorry. And then say, please forgive me. The way we think of I'm sorry is it stops right here in front of your face. It's a very passive sounding word. And think about it. How often do we go around, we run into somebody in the grocery store and we say, oh, I'm sorry. Do we actually stop at that moment and ask that that person forgive us for running into them with a cart? Or if we say something rude, or if we snap at somebody, versus please forgive me. If you see the action in the word, you are putting the request out that that person actually reciprocate with an emotion back. It doesn't stop right in front of your face with a very passive, I'm sorry. So what you'll find is that in these root languages, our ancestors understood the power of the word. Forgiveness is that powerful a concept. It's where we can say, please forgive me, I forgive you, and we reciprocate the feeling where if perhaps I have done something wrong, I ask for your forgiveness. And think back to a time when you've had a disagreement with somebody. Or let's take a very common example. Right now in Houston, we're seeing an uptick in road rage. We're seeing people, as they're getting out on the highways, cutting others off and yelling at them, and for some people, even acts of violence. When somebody cuts you off, they have done something to injure you. Have you responded by saying, what an idiot, what, fill in the blank, whatever that word is? When somebody has done something wrong to you, is it possible that you have also done something or said something that is suboptimal? It's something that in your best self you would not have otherwise done. That's where forgiveness is reciprocal. You both give and ask for it to be received. In Hawaii, in the ancient times, this practice was called ho'oponopono. Ho'o means to make. Pono means to make right. Right or congruent, not as in right or wrong, but right as a sense of let us make things right between us. And the ho'oponopono actually means let me make right between you and between me. Let us make it reciprocal. I both ask for forgiveness and I receive forgiveness. So in these ancient times, whenever there was a misunderstanding between people in the Hawaiian culture, they brought together everybody that was involved. So imagine right now, if I see Biram Uncle on the call, suppose I'm having a conversation with Biram Uncle and I say something that, I didn't mean to be rude, but he got his feelings hurt. And then Uncle goes and he tells Auntie, and he says, hey, this kiddo, Vani, she said something that really hurt my feelings. And then Auntie tells another auntie, and then that auntie calls my mom and says, oh my goodness, Anjali, did you hear what your daughter said? In the Hawaiian system, every person that was involved in that conversation would be called into a forgiveness circle. They would be called into an area where myself and Uncle, who were the original two that it happened between, and then everybody else that was involved. And now suppose I was talking to my dad, right? Auntie talks to my mom, and then I'm talking to my dad, and I say, oh, Poppy, I did this and I was rude to Uncle. Well, then we have to call my dad and say, you know what, you've got to come along too. Because anywhere that energy, that stuck energy is connected, it must be addressed. It must be disconnected. It must be cleansed. It must be cleared out of the system. So this was a very beautiful way of making sure that no one is forgotten in a misunderstanding. Have you ever been in a situation, perhaps, when you were in school, where you're talking to a few friends and you'll say things like, oh my goodness, I can't believe so-and-so said something. And then that person goes and tells someone else. And then, it just kind of flows into a, long list of people who suddenly get involved in something that was very simple. Well, what happens when the two people who originally had the misunderstanding are fine? Imagine if two friends are having a disagreement and they both are fine, but they've told all of their friends and they've told their family members and they've told members of their temple or their church. And all of those folks are like, well, I'm not okay. I still am upset by what Vani said or what this other person did. And that's why in this forgiveness circle, when you can bring everybody that's involved, you address the energetic connection. So we know from our culture that whenever we have conversations, or even when we make eye contact with somebody, that establishes a connection from our heart to their heart. And these connections stay. Any number of people that I've interacted with during the day, those connections can stay with me over time. And if you think about it, just as the same as our blood vessels can get clogged from having too fatty of food, or our pipes in our house need routine cleaning, our energetic channels also need this similar type of cleansing. We need to make sure that for us to receive source energy, that source energy being whatever name that you call your source in whatever tradition you follow, that source energy comes to you completely unfiltered and fills a clear and calm vessel, that vessel being your body. So in those ancient times in Hawaii, when they pulled everyone together, they made sure that forgiveness was both given and received. Please forgive me, I forgive you. And if you think about it, in modern times, we can't really call everybody into the same forgiveness circle, or call everybody to my house in temple and say, okay, everybody come to the Rouse house. We're going to have a forgiveness session. Everybody that connects across Zoom these days, or is in conference calls, or runs across people in airports or in hospitals or the workplace, we don't have time to call everybody together and say, you know what, we're going to clear out our systems to make sure that we are a clear channel for this energy. Instead, what we have is a modern application of what we call ho'oponopono. what this process that we're going to do, I'm going to describe the process to you, and then we're going to take one person through that process so that you can feel what it's like to make an energetic connection, cut that connection, and then reestablish it where you want to, if you want to. So let me be clear, though, in terms of forgiveness, because I know some of you might be thinking, there are some things that are done that are not worthy of forgiveness. Do I have to be friends with the person after I have forgiven them? What if somebody has committed a crime, a violent crime, or has abused a child? What kind of forgiveness is required or even possible in that situation? And what I want you to do is just think about it this way. The only thing that we have control over, complete control over, is our reaction to a situation. So for somebody who has hurt you either physically or emotionally, I'm not suggesting that once you do the forgiveness process, that you actually will become friends with them. It may or may not heal family relationships. I actually believe it can heal family relationships, because what you do then is heal yourself. And that's the only thing that we truly can do, is heal ourselves. And think about even in a situation where somebody has done harm to you intentionally. Is it possible that when they have done harm, that you have said a bad word or had some kind of wish that some harm fall to them? Well, for those types of things, right, for us to be a clear vessel, those are the types of emotions that we don't want stuck in our system. We don't need it gathering up any kind of gunk around our chakras. We don't need it to sit in our heart. We don't need it to cloud our third eye or help us open ourselves up to receive divine source energy. That is why whenever you do the forgiveness process, it doesn't require you to reestablish a relationship unless you want a relationship. I do forgiveness every single night. I have now gotten it to a point where within 30 seconds to 1 minute, I can pull everybody that I've interacted with during the day. I pull my mom and dad up there every single day. And you might say, well, Vani, are you arguing with them every single day? Actually, no. I have such a great relationship with my parents. And I love the thought that at the end of the day, I can clear out my vessel. I can clear my channels so that when I reconnect with them in the morning, I'm doing it from a bright and clear space. Forgiveness is also great for strengthening relationships. My relationship with my parents has never been as beautiful as it is right now. And I credit the work that I do in forgiveness around this, because there are times we get into arguments. My dad and I love political debates. My mom and I love to, talk spiritual things. We love to shop. And sometimes when we're doing things and one of us is tired or not in the best of moods, sometimes one of us, or mostly me, says things that I wish I hadn't said. And it doesn't change the nature of our relationship. But by doing forgiveness every single night, I get to ask for them to forgive me for whatever I might have done intentionally or unintentionally. The best part of forgiveness is it brings peace to you. And at the end of the day, that's what we have 100% control. So the way that this process works, I'm going to explain it to you first, and then we'll do the exercise. What you'll do is when I ask you to close your eyes, you will construct a stage out in front of you. And on that stage, we're going to bring one person. Now, here's the beauty of our unconscious mind. You may be thinking, well, Vani, I don't really know who needs to come out onto the stage. Well, I would say the second I tell you construct a stage, the first person that pops into your mind is the person who needs to come on the stage. Don't try to think of the person you're most angry at. Your unconscious mind knows who to bring up, and that's the picture of the person they're going to bring up. And on this stage, we bring that person. And what we're going to do is establish a connection from our heart to their heart. And when we make that connection, we call it an Aka connection. It's like a energetic cord that goes from our heart chakra to their heart chakra. And what it does is it allows us to have a conversation in our minds and complete whatever we need to do to make us feel whole. That's right, it makes you feel whole. So think about it. The person who comes out onto that stage, today it might be my gardener, or it might be my friend that I had a meeting with that, we had some disagreements. Whoever comes out onto the stage, that's the person I need to bring out. The other thing we're going to do is anybody that is attached to that person, we're going to bring out onto the stage. Now, here's also the beauty of your unconscious mind. Whether or not you think about it consciously, your unconscious mind carries all of those memories, all of our past lives, all of our karmas. It knows what it needs to do. And if you allow your unconscious mind to do what it does best, it'll bring out all of the people that need to show up on the stage related to that one person. We're going to fill ourselves up with light. We're going to fill the other person up with light. And I'm going to give you about 1 minute to 2 minutes to have a conversation in your mind about whatever you need to make sure the forgiveness is complete. Whatever you need to say, whatever that person needs to say to you. Now, a couple of you might be thinking, well, Vani, what if that person doesn't forgive me? What if that person on the other side is the best friend I had in childhood and we had a horrible argument and that person won't forgive me? So here's the best part of this. It's your stage. It's your story. And in your story, you get to make the actors do whatever you need for them to do. So in this story, your story, you get to make the person forgive you. And remember, at the end of the day, all you're doing is healing yourself. So whether or not that other person changes is actually irrelevant, because once you let go of that stuck energy, those squishy tennis shoes that are, filled with water or covered in mud, once you remove those, your energy flows. And what you'll find is that you start to feel better. And who knows, the relationship may also end up being repaired. So while you're doing this, I'm going to chant a Hawaiian chant that calls to source, that calls to your source. So whatever spiritual tradition you follow, whether you believe in a formless Brahman, whether you need to have a form for the creator, the transformer, or the destroyer, whatever source you need, that is the source that you call in to bring the energy that you need to heal yourself up, to heal that other person up, and for them to say, I forgive you, please forgive me. I forgive you, please forgive me. And then what we do is we cut that energetic cord. We cut the cord with people that we love as well as with people that drive us crazy. Because what we're doing is imagine a pipe and all we're doing is cleaning out that pipe. So whatever next connection we make from our heart to that person or to any set of people, we're doing it where the pipe is clear, where we as a vessel are clear of that stuck energy. And so once we do this, you can practice this every single night. And I'm happy to share with you, my teacher in Hawaii, Dr. Matt James, has a 7-minute recording that you can just play, and it's a free recording. I'm happy to provide it to you. If any of you are interested, you can reach out to me after the call. I'll provide the link to you. It's something you can practice until you get used to doing it yourself. And like I said, I do it every single night, and it helps me sleep more restfully. And when I wake up in the morning, I don't feel like there's been anything left over from the night before. So, quick recap. You're going to close your eyes. You're going to pick one person that your unconscious mind says, I need to do forgiveness with. And don't overthink it. I know a lot of you are big thinkers on this call. I don't want you to overthink it. I just want you to go with the first person that shows up. That person we're going to pull onto the stage. We're going to make an energetic connection to them. And then from that connection, we're going to fill ourselves up with light from our source, whatever we call that source. We're going to fill that person up with that same healing, bright white light. And then we're going to have the conversation that allows us at the end of the conversation to say, I forgive you. Please forgive me too. And then we're going to cut the cord and allow that person and the stage to disappear. And what I'm hoping is that you feel that same sense of peace. I know many of you on the call, I've grown up with so many of you, and I know how we all tend to feel when, after we've had a function in the temple and we see everything all laying about, we straighten up all the chairs, we clean up all of the tables, and we get everything organized again. And that feeling of satisfaction that we have that the temple has returned to its original state, that the energy that was flowing before we had the function is back to its optimal state. That is what forgiveness actually makes me feel, is I have a clean house, I have a clean temple, I have a clean vessel for myself, so that when I go into that self-realized state, forgiveness becomes a part of my personality. One of the things you might also notice is that your temper will decrease. You may hold on to sadness a lot shorter a time. You may not feel as hurt. You may not get as angry. Forgiveness has a lot of mental and physical benefits to help you maintain your spirit in the way that you were created, which was absolutely perfect. That little piece of God that came in each one of us at our births, that is the state that we all aspire to return to, what many of us call self-realization. That's possible when you can let go of these stuck or trapped energies. So I'm going to just hop into this. After we finish the exercise, I'm going to open it up to hear what your experiences are, as well as field any of your questions. So for right now, for those of you that I can't see on the screen, please close your eyes. And I want you to imagine in front of you, draw a stage in your mind's eye. Draw that stage as large as you need it. And I want you to ask your unconscious mind, who is it that I need to bring out onto the stage today? Who is it with whom I need to have forgiveness? And whoever that person is, I want you to see them on the stage. And now what I want you to do is imagine from the crown of your head that there is an infinite source of light coming from the universe, coming from our source, that comes into the crown of your head. I want you to have it fill your body, go all the way down your shoulders, down to your waist, through your legs, filling your arms, filling yourself up from this light that comes from your source energy. And then I want you to take that energy and extend it to the person who's on the stage. You fill that person up with this same pure light all the way from their head down to their toes, out to their arms, all the way to their fingertips. And once you have filled both yourselves up and full of this light, I want you to extend a connection from your heart to their heart. And you're making an energetic connection so that you can have the conversation that you need to. And while you are looking at this person, I want you to ask your unconscious mind, whoever else is related to this conversation, this situation, please have them come join you on the stage. If you can't see faces, that's perfectly okay. Your unconscious mind knows what it needs to do, and it brings the right people up. If there's only one person, great. If there are a lot of people, great. Whatever you do is perfect. Whoever needs to show up, whether they have a face or they're just a black dot, have them come up onto the stage so that you can have this conversation. And what I want you to do in your mind, talk to this person about whatever you need to resolve the situation, whatever it is, so that the forgiveness is complete. For you to be able to forgive and forget, keeping in mind that that stuck energy serves no purpose in your self-realization. And as you have this conversation, ask them, is there anything that they need to say to you? And I want you to take the next 1 minute to have this conversation while I chant to source energy to open up the space for us to have a complete experience and release of stuck energy. No ana ke akua ikana hele hele yala ya ke ki o hoe kaua koko o na kino malui kalani malue hoe e ho ulu mai ana o kani kona kahu o mako noa H.E.A.L.ing And now I want you to tell that person or those people that are on the stage there with you, I forgive you. Please forgive me. Let that forgiveness be complete. I forgive you. Please forgive me. And let that forgiveness flow back and forth across that energetic connection you've created from your heart to their heart. I forgive you. Please forgive me. And now, I want you to imagine that connection that is going from one heart to another, whether it's one people or multiple. I want you to take one hand and grab that energetic cord that goes from your heart to their heart. And I want you to grab it in your hand. And if it's multiple cords, imagine that you're grabbing all of them into one hand. And I want you to imagine that your other hand is like a sword of light. And with that sword, I want you to make a break between your heart and their heart. You're making a break between that energetic cord. and you allow that cord to fall back into your heart, and imagine that cord falling back in to the heart of the person that you have just asked forgiveness of. And as you see that cord falling back, the person on the stage begins to dissolve. The stage begins to dissolve. And what I want you to do is, with whatever feeling that you have, for some people, it's an energized feeling. For others, there may be a sense of sorrow or a sadness or loss. I want you to imagine again that infinite source of love, healing energy coming from your crown and coming into your body and filling all of the places inside of your body so that you feel whole and clear, so that you see yourself as calm, centered, and balanced. And what I'd like for you to do is, to wrap this up, I'd like for you to take 4 breaths. Inhale through your nose, exhale through your mouth. If you inhale for 1, exhale for 2. So whatever you inhale, exhale twice as long. So inhale, 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 and last one, inhale. And this process we call Ho'oponopono, to make right 2 times, to make right above and below, to make right outside of us and inside of us, or to make right between yourself and another person. If you practice this every single night, I can guarantee that you will start feeling lighter, and some of the negative emotions or stuck energy that you might be holding on to, you will feel releasing out of your system. So with that, that takes us to the question and answer. So I would love for those of you that feel comfortable to come off of mute and either share your experience, tell me what I need to know, ask your questions, or for those of you that are more comfortable typing, please feel free to put a question or a comment in the chat box. I'd love to hear what your experience is, and especially if you have any questions, I'd like to be able to answer and help bring some clarity. But before we do that, I'm very, very grateful to have this opportunity to be able to share this learning with you, to be able to share this time. And what I hope for you is the same way that I can feel the positive energy flow through me and feel every single day, I hope that it brings some to you. And to the extent that you want to continue the conversation, hear more about it, work with me, talk to me, help you through processing or releasing any negative emotions, please call on me, because this brings me great joy and satisfaction. And I especially appreciate all of your attention and attendance today. So please, those of you that have questions or comments, please let me know. So I see in our chat box, I'm going to pull it up. So we're going to have, I'm guessing we're going to have Hanuman Chalisa right at the end. And I will definitely send the link. I'm guessing that's Lata Auntie that I see there.
Yes,
And-
Vani. Thank
Yeah.
you. It's a beautiful session. I can't tell you how wonderful, how timely, how appropriate it is for this time.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Can we just do Hanuman Chalisa first and then have a questions and answer session and then wind up by 8 o'clock? Please.
Sure.
Yeah. Dr.
Sure.
Biram, you take over after the Hanuman Chalisa. Thank you.
जय जानकी रमण जय विभीषण शरण जय सरोरुह चरण जय धनुज हरण जय जानकी रमण जय विभीषण शरण जय सरोरुह चरण जय धनुज हरण जय त्रिलोक शरण्य जय भक्त कारुण्य जय त्रिलोक शरण्य जय भक्त कारुण्य जय गण्य लावण्य जय जगद्गण्य जय जानकी रमण जय विभीषण शरण जय सरोरुह चरण जय धनुज हरण सकल लोक निवासा साकेत पुरवासा सकल लोक निवासा साकेत पुरवासा अकलंक निज दासा आब्ज मुखहासा सुखमौनि स्तुति पात्र शुभधन्य चारित्र मकर कुंडल कर्ण मेघ समवर्ण सुखमौनि स्तुति पात्र शुभधन्य चारित्र मकर कुंडल कर्ण मेघ समवर्ण जय जानकी रमण जय विभीषण शरण जय सरोरुह चरण जय धनुज हरण रूप निर्जित मारा रुचिर सद्गुण सूरा रूप निर्जित मारा रुचिर सद्गुण सूरा भूप दशरथ कुमारा भूबारहारा पाप संख विदारा पंक्ति मुख संहारा पाप संख विदारा पंक्ति मुख संहारा श्रीपति सुकुमारा सीता विहारा पाप संघ विदारा पंक्ति मुख संहारा श्रीपति सुकुमारा सीता विहारा जय जानकी रमण जय विभीषण शरण जय सरोरुह चरण जय धनुज हरण जय धनुज हरण श्री गुरु चरण सरोज रज निज मन मुकुर सुधारी बरनौ रघुबर बिमल जसु जो दायक फल चारि बुद्धि भक्तिहीन तनु जानिके, सुमिरन सुमिरन पवन कुमार। बल बुद्धि विद्या देहु मोहि, हरहु कलेश विकार। जय हनुमान ज्ञान गुण सागर, जय कपीसति लोक उजागर। रामदूत अतुलित बल धामा, अंजनी पुत्र पवन सुत नामा। महावीर विक्रम बजरंगी, कुमति निवार सुमति के संगी। कंचन बरन बिराज सुबेशा, कानन कुंडल कुंचित केशा। हाथ वज्र और ध्वजा बिराजे, कांधे मूंज जनेऊ साजे। शंकर सुवन केसरी नंदन, तेज प्रताप महाजगबंदन। विद्यावान गुणी अति चातुर, राम काज करिबे को आतुर। प्रभु चरित्र सुनिबे को रसिया, राम लखन सीता मन बसिया। सूक्ष्म रूप धरि सियहि दिखावा, विकट रूप धरि लंक जरावा। भीम रूप धरि असुर संहारे, रामचंद्र के काज संवारे। लाए संजीवन लखन जियाए, श्री रघुवीर हर्षि उर लाए। रघुपति कीन्ही बहुत बड़ाई, तुम मम प्रिय भरत सम भाई। सहस बदन तुम रोजस गावे, अस कहि श्रीपति कंठ लगावे। सनकादिक ब्रह्मादि मुनीसा, नारद सारद सहित अहिसा। यम कुबेर दिखपाल जहांते, कभी कोबिद कहि सके कहाते। तुम उपकार सुग्रीव ही कीन्हा, राम मिलाय राजपत दीना। तुमरो मंत्र विभीषण माना, लंकेश्वर भय सब जग जाना। युग सहस्र योजन पर भानु, लील्यो ताहि मधुर फल जानु। प्रभु मुद्रिका मेलि मुख माहि, जलति लांघि गए अचरज नाही। दुर्गम काज जगत के जेते, सुगम अनुग्रह तुमरे तेते। राम दुआरे तुम रखवारे, होत न आज्ञा बिन पैसारे। सब सुख लहे तुम्हारी सरना, तुम रक्षक काहो को डरना। आपन तेज सम्हारो आपे, तीनों लोग हांकते कान पे। भूत पिशाच निकट नहीं आवे, महावीर जब नाम सुनावे। नासे रोग हरे सब पीरा, जपत निरंतर हनुमत बीरा। संकट से हनुमान छुड़ावे, मन क्रम बचन ध्यान जो लावे। सब पर राम तपस्वी राजा, तिनके काज सकल तुम साजा। और मनोरथ जो कोई लावे, सोई अमित जीवन फल पावे। चारों युग प्रताप तुम्हारा, है प्रसिद्ध जगत उजियारा। साधु संत के तुम रखवारे, असुर निकंदन राम दुलारे। अष्ट सिद्धि नव निधि के दाता, असबर दीन जानकी माता। राम रसायन राम रसायन तुम्हारे पासा, सदा रहो रघुपति के दासा। तुम्हारे भजन राम को पावे, जन्म जन्म के दुख बिसरावे। अंत काल रघुपर पुर जाई, जहाँ जन्म हरि भक्त कहाई। और देवता चित्तन धरई, हनुमत से सर्व सुख करई। संकट हरे मिटे सब पीरा, जो सुमिरै हनुमत बलबीरा। जय 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 हनुमान गोसाई, कृपा करहु गुरुदेव की न्याय। जो सत बार पाठ कर कोई, छूट ही बंदी महासुख होई। जो यह पढ़े हनुमान चालीसा, होय सिद्धि साकी गौरीसा। तुलसीदास सदा हरिचेरा कीजे नाथ हृदय महाडेरा पवन तनय संकट हरना मंगल मूर्ति रूप राम लखन सीता सहित हृदय बसहु सुरभूप हृदय बसहु सुरभूप ओम असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्माम् अमृतं गमय ओम शांति शांति शांतिः लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति
Thank you, Lata.
Vani,
Vani, that was a very nice presentation. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, Uncle. Did I see Shamala, Auntie?
Yes, Shyamala auntie is just waiting to talk to you. Okay, you already
For those of you who know,
okay.
my
You
auntie is
already-
my guru.
Okay, you already know that I am a very, very old-fashioned auntie. Okay, you have to admit that. So
Yes.
let us go back in the Gita class. Among the first few shlokas that we learned, but remember the Kayena Vaja Manasendriyarva Buddhyatmana va Prakrite Swabhava Karomi Yadyat Sakalam Parasma Narayanayedi Samarpayami. Okay, so we tell all the children, or in the beginning, you have to stand with the children, and when they go to bed, make them repeat. So there itself, he says, if I have done something wrong, you have to forgive, oh Lord. Who else you say? But I have learned a lot from my own parents. Okay, they used, especially my mothers used to tell me that if you have done something wrong to somebody, please go and talk to that person right away. But if you are shy of it, at least within the next few days, find an opportunity, go and talk to them. And between the talk, most of the time, the things are taken care of, okay? So in my long life, so far, I have seen that if I have something against somebody, it takes time. For a while, I may be angry with that person, and the forgiveness doesn't come. But as time goes by, it's a time is the best healer. We all know, right? So time is the best healer. As time goes by, we also mature, and we get that power of forgiveness much easier than before. Okay, so this is the way I learned. If I had something against somebody when I was 35 years old, I don't have it anymore. Okay, so it's like that. So it is a way of communicating with the other person and settling the problem. So the other person also feels happy about it. So see that way, both of you are happy. You know what I mean? Sorry, Babani, I don't know. I probably won't follow the things of that you have said, because I'm still very, very old.
Auntie, I'm just happy whenever you teach me something new. So there's
Yeah, okay.
nothing to follow. It's whatever works for each one of us, Auntie. And it's your way is working for you. So why change it?
Right. But I want to take a very good example from Bhagavata Puranam and put it before everybody. This is called Shamika Upadesham. We all know the story of Parikshit, the king who put a dead snake on a sage who was in deep meditation, and then the Shringi, his son, who happened to see this, cursed Parikshit that within 7 days he will be hit by a snake, he will die. And look at this, when the father knew that the son has done this, he was very, very upset with the son. Okay, so he gave this Upadesham. Okay, I'm going to read it. Upaskrita vipralabdhaha shabdaha shipta hadavi nasya tad pratikurvandi tad bhaktaha prabhavo abhi. The meaning is this: even when reproached, deceived, abused, disregarded, or struck by others, devotees of the Lord never ever return the wrong done by the wrongdoer, though capable of doing so. See, just imagine a father says, if I was in your position, oh son, I would have never done that, given a second thought. Of course, the son was young, okay, so there is a big difference. A father is very mature, and he has done a lot of tapas, meditation, everything. So to me, I have written down in the book, and when you started the topic, I had to really find this. I think this is the best way of forgiving. The best advice a father is giving to a son. So Vani, I am still going to go back to my way. Thank you.
Of course, Auntie.
But your speech was very good, as usual. You have such an eloquent. You are such an eloquent speaker.
Thank you, Auntie. Were there any other questions? I've gotten some of the emails for those of you that are interested. And I will definitely connect you and would love to stay connected with you too.
One is this Anup Shetty from Dallas. First of all, the talk was beautiful, and I think we all can apply this. But my question is, what if, say, I don't feel that I need to be forgiven, but I want to forgive somebody. And the second scenario is, I want to be forgiven, but I don't need to forgive the other person, or I don't think that person has done anything for me to forgive that person.
Yeah, it's a great question on either side, right? Where, is there something on the other side, right? The example that I think of, right, is especially with my parents who are everything for me. I can imagine a situation more often than not where I would ask their forgiveness rather than my saying, I forgive you, please forgive me, where I would just go to them and say, please forgive me. The reason that we do it in a reciprocal fashion is that there are times that things happen unintentionally from either side. And so we see this as the completion of a cycle, so that, again, when we clear out energies, we're not always aware of the energy from the other side, or sometimes fully from our own side. So from your first example, right, where you may not need the other person to forgive you, but sometimes we have thoughts that are not always the best, and those thoughts have energy behind them too. You know, if you said something like, oh crap, or oh, you know, whatever, that puts an energy out there. And for that, we want that cycle to be complete. Or even from the other side, you know, chances are my parents spend a lot of time forgiving me for the things that come out of my mouth. But sometimes they may say, God, what a cranky kid. Or, you know, I wish you weren't in such a bad mood. And so we want that energetic connection to be clear all the way around. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
The cool thing is it's in our head anyway, so we're just clearing it. It's not like we're having a conversation where I'm actually going to my parents and saying, I forgive you, because, you know, in my upbringing, I could never imagine myself going to my mom and dad saying, I forgive you, please forgive me. But when you do it in your head, it's serving the same purpose as clearing the energy out in a complete circuit. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Bonnie, I see this as one way of moving on with life, right? You're not stuck with anger or with somebody else, and all those emotions hold you back.
You know, Uncle, that's exactly what it is. I mean, you said it in a nutshell, right? It's we who get stuck, not the other person.
Right, right.
And we're the ones who sit here and sometimes have the, oh, I wish this or that, and we get wrapped up in, instead it's just kind of like, I forgive you, please forgive me, and we move on.
So basically, we're not helping somebody else, we're helping ourselves.
And at the end of the day, Uncle, that's the only thing we can do.
Right.
Right? In any one of our healing professions, right?
Right.
We are there to help remind the person that they are capable of healing themselves and that their healing actually comes from God.
Right.
And we are there to help facilitate, help remind. And at the end of the day, this process is actually about healing your own spirit.
Right.
And when you heal yourself, you find that the world looks different.
Absolutely.
When you're not angry, other people don't look angry.
Well said. Well said. Thank you so much. And it's 7 minutes past 8.
Yes, my apologies. We ran a few minutes over.
No, it shows the degree of interest people have in this topic. So thank you, Wani. Appreciate it. And all the best to you. And don't be a stranger.
All right, Uncle. Thank you. Thank you all.
Shubhratri.
Shubhratri.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vani.
Thank you, Vani.
నువ్వు తీయకుండా చెప్తే ఏం జరుగుతుంది
ఒకళ్ళు వెళ్తున్నారు